My whole goal is to reduce real homelessness, not deal with the symptoms. I want to have less people are homeless than the year before.
You don't stop being homeless just because you are being ticketed and moved out of the alley.
Of course, everybody wants to move the homeless, but they gotta be somewhere, don't they?
The economic crisis may be over, but 3.5 million Americans will be homeless this year, a number that's remained constant for more than a decade despite programs designed to get homeless people back on their feet.
It seems like it's getting harder. I've seen a lot of people, too, lose their houses. Older people in the housing crunch that have never dealt with homelessness, that don't know how to be homeless.
Cities are responding to growing public frustration with a new tactic, legislation designed to hide the homeless rather than help them. Controversial new laws have been passed by dozens of local governments that make it virtually illegal to be homeless. Boise, Idaho is one city facing scrutiny for the effect these laws have had on homeless people.
Boise, Idaho is one of a growing number of cities across the country passing laws designed to get homeless people off the streets by criminalizing basic human behaviors, like sitting down too long, sleeping, or even sharing food in public. A group of homeless people in Boise have sued the city government, claiming that the laws constitute cruel and unusual punishment.
Janet Bell became homeless 10 years ago. She lost her arm and nearly lost her life to an infection she developed while living on the streets. She was on a railroad bridge when police wrote her a ticket for sleeping outside.
This guy that I knew had a camp down by the river, and I'd been down talking to him, and we both came up, and we got busted.
How many tickets did you get?
I got 2, I think.
Just for camping outside, for
Yeah.
being outside.
Yeah.
She and 5 other homeless people sued the city in federal court, and the stakes are high. The case has reached a federal appellate court, and the outcome could repeal laws targeting homeless people in cities nationwide. As the number of cities with such laws continues to grow, her case could redefine the rights of homeless people across America.
What do you think the real purpose of that law is?
The law? To harass the homeless in hopes that the homeless will go somewhere else. Of course, everybody wants to move the homeless, but they gotta be somewhere, don't they?
Supporters of laws like Boise's anti-camping ordinance say that they help get homeless people off the streets. Critics say that it just creates a whack-a-mole dynamic whereby homeless are either forced to move somewhere else or end up in jail.
The majority of cities have too few shelter beds, a shortage that's been made worse since federal funding was scaled back in 2012. In Boise, there are only about 300 for a homeless count that can exceed 2,000. Richard Morgan became homeless 6 years ago when the auto shop where he worked went under. He couch surfed for a year but ran out of options and moved to a shelter.
Well, you know, I did. I tried that when I first became literally out on the street homeless. And I could only stand it for about 2 months, and that's if I drank. That was part of my self-medication for the bipolar crowd anxiety. When I don't like to drink, and I didn't like drinking that much, and it was easier to move.
Then he moved to the streets, but police harassment eventually forced him to the woods.
One of the tricks is getting in and out of here without leaving footprints is when it's got about 1/2 foot of snow on the ground.
It sounds extreme, but we soon found he wasn't alone.
Taking a little stroll through the woods.
Yeah?
How's it going, man?
Good. We've only been walking a couple minutes, but all through the woods back here, you see evidence that people stay out here to avoid the citations the police give for public camping. How many people staying back here?
Well, in our area, there was 1, 2, 3, 5. 5 tents.
And the number will soon grow. Citing the city's anti-camping law, police just announced they're going to ticket the 150 people living behind this homeless shelter. The shelters don't have the capacity or special programs these people need, but they're being ticketed anyway.
Where are they expecting everybody to go?
It doesn't seem like anybody has a solution other than just to clear out the alley at this point. Like, you don't stop being homeless just because you are being ticketed and moved out of the alley.
In practice, the laws mean homeless people break the law by simply being homeless.
I got a warning ticket. They know I'm on a voucher. I'm waiting for from HUD. I'm waiting for the apartments to be built for us to move into, and I'm still getting ticketed. They're going to throw me in jail. If I go to jail, I lose my housing.
Homeless advocates like Lydia Blackwell say the laws are hurting the people they're supposed to help.
Where do you think that they're brought when they are released from jail? They're brought back to the street, right back to where they started from. The only thing that's changed is they have another barrier to housing.
Do you see a discrepancy between what the government says the laws are designed to do and the effect they have in reality?
Yeah, if the intention is in any way to try to solve the problem of homelessness, it does quite the opposite.
Despite those criticisms, laws criminalizing behavior associated with homeless people are an increasingly popular tactic. A major force behind their rising popularity is homelessness consultant Robert Marbut.
I've been to over 708 places as of last week.
708 counties,
708 counties, cities, programs. I define it as a program.
His tough approach to cleaning up the streets has made him a sought-out consultant to cities nationwide. We followed him to Northern California, where he pitched his services to an affluent community.
You gotta have a culture of transformation, and you do that by being in programs.
His advice is often the same. Stop handing out free food and open a 24-hour shelter where the homeless are kept out of sight.
Feeding people has never got a single person out of homelessness. I've challenged every feeding organization in America. Please bring me somebody who you fed and because you fed them are no longer homeless. It has never happened. This is so
that may sound harsh, but he cites improvements that are hard to argue with.
The system. We could get an 80% reduction if we just started working smart. Clearwater, St. Pete, all have had that sort of 80 to 90% level cuts.
His results in St. Petersburg and Clearwater have been his calling card on the national stage. But we learned those claims simply weren't true. Neither St. Petersburg nor Clearwater even undertake a homeless count in the first place. But they pointed us to data for Pinellas County, where both are located. The homeless count there actually increased by almost 1,000 people since Marbut's hiring. Inside this former jail that Marbut just opened as a homeless shelter, his numbers got even more convoluted.
Earlier, we were talking about metrics and how you measure the success of these programs or these shelters.
One is how many people are graduating from the street. In other words, 1 year from now after going out through the program have no longer come back. That to me is the most important.
How do you know they just haven't gone elsewhere?
You can check across all these data systems and see who's who. I mean, that's doable, right? That's not a hypothetical that can be done today.
These are like vastly different data sets. I mean, can you really build a data set that tells you that these people are truly off the street and not just on a street in the next county over somewhere else?
Well, homeless information is federal required. So if you use the backdoor approach and say, are they hitting the system somewhere else? That data is already there. That data's been around about a decade and is getting better and better.
When we asked him about his own success rate, he said he didn't measure it.
The ultimate test, and I don't measure this, but the ultimate test would ability of a prior homeless person to have free market housing.
That seems almost insurmountable to me for someone to come off the street, and I have to imagine that number is extremely low.
And it is, and I think that's why people don't measure that.
That lack of data hasn't stopped him from building shelters across the country.
This is Pinellas Safe Harbor, the county's newest homeless refuge.
We looked into a shelter Marbut built near St. Petersburg, Florida in 2011.
The amenities at Pinellas Safe Harbor are Spartan to be sure. They sleep on these mats. It's a bare bones existence, reduced down to life's minimum requirements.
A report before the United Nations Committee Against Torture investigated the shelter near St. Petersburg and found it subjected homeless people to cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. The report was led by Eric Tars, senior attorney with the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty.
In St. Petersburg, what he was pushing was for people to be put in solitary pretrial detention if they don't choose to go to the shelter. And so to keep them there in solitary until they decide, well, I guess the shelter is a better option.
Pretrial solitary confinement for what are misdemeanors.
Yes,
largely.
exactly.
But Marbut's business has continued to expand.
You got the full life, full system of everything going on here. 2 sets of Rogaine and a used condom.
We shadowed Marbut while he took stock of the homeless situation in Grass Valley, California. His focus wasn't what we'd expected.
He's sending a symbol here, you know, that's trying to protect, you know, this is out trying to say, don't mess with my stuff. It's, in the homeless world, very similar to, you know, what dream catchers in the Native American or the First Nation community. A lot of time you can tap into water and electricity in these encampments. I've been in encampments that have satellite TV and, you know, cable.
Nothing he said had anything to do with solving the problem of homelessness, and nothing we saw suggested his programs have helped a significant number of homeless people turn their lives around. But his thinking shapes the way tens of thousands of homeless people are treated. The laws pushing people into Marbut's shelters will face serious challenges if Janet Bell wins her lawsuit against the city.
What do you think the impact will be if you win the lawsuit?
I try to do what I can, you know, just to help fight this thing. If it changes things at all, where there's less harassment and possibly more help with housing, then it will be a great impact. It will be a tremendous impact.
Her case is in federal court, and it could be years before it's resolved. Until then, laws targeting the homeless are on the books.